Well, hello everybody. Welcome to a Mexican Crossing Lines. We're streaming on Facebook at 88.1 Fargo Moorhead, on YouTube at Duke1517, and on Twitch at A Mexican Crossing Lines, and on KPPP LP 88.1 Fargo Moorhead, adding local color to your airwaves.
Welcome everyone. You can leave us a message if you want to talk about today's topic or any other topics at 566-0917. You can leave a 3-minute message and we would play it on the air. You can also tweet us at media_PPP. Email me at cindy@kpppfm.com or Duke at kpppfm.com. Welcome to the show, everyone, here on A Mexican Crossing Lines with your hosts, Cindy Gomez-Schempp
and Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM, KPPP LP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. And today, I am going to be talking about pandemic politics. It is sad that a global pandemic, which is affecting every single human on the planet, which has killed over 5 million people on the planet, which has infected millions and millions and millions of people in the United States, which has currently killed approximately 1 million people in our country.
Wow.
Has been politicized. We can't just do the right thing. We have less than 5% of the global population in America, yet we represent over a quarter of deaths due to this pandemic. Isn't that a shame?
Definitely a shame, yeah.
A disgrace? A blot on our country? And it didn't have to be this way. And I know everyone is, especially on the right, scrambling to blame the Biden administration, to say that they're the reason so many people are dying, that more people are dying now than under Trump. I have to say, in my personal opinion, that we started off the wrong way with lies and misinformation, and that snowballed out of control into what we have today. It didn't have to be this way, but because of the way that it was started, it is inevitable that it would be this way now. And it's not something you can just snap your fingers and fix, because there's too many lies that have been told. Too many people have invested themselves in those lies, literally and figuratively, because there is money being made off of the sale of ivermectin and all of these other grifts, all of these other lies that we were told about cures for COVID that never were. And so it is with great pain and sorrow that I acknowledge that in America, the pandemic has been politicized. It should never have been politicized, but it was. And it was done specifically and chiefly by Donald J. Trump. And unfortunately, it was a miscalculation on his part because he made the wrong choice. I know, and I said this at the onset of the pandemic, that he would come to regret his choice. That one day he would say that he was always in favor of ending the pandemic.
Yeah.
That one day he would say, oh yes, I was vaccinated. I got the vaccine. I got the boosters. He's done that already now. That he would backtrack and backpedal and try to fix the most catastrophic decision of his life, downplaying this pandemic, spreading misinformation about it, about masks, about vaccines, all to the detriment of his own party, of his own MAGA followers. I apologize for our studio dog, Lux. He hears and he tries to protect us from
evil,
any noise.
We were
just
talking about evil, and I guess that's a reaction. Another thing I think about is the mentality of people in this country and the memory. Trump's counting on the lack of memory, the lack of involvement, the lack of commitment to community to keep on spreading his lies and start backing up and acting like, well, I didn't say that. This is what I did, and try to rewrite history. It's something that's going on. It's very politicized. History is so politicized in this country, and it's just massaging people's brains and counting on the lack of memory, the lack of paying attention, and the lack of community.
There are a lot of reasons why people hated Trump, why they didn't want him ever to become president, including many of the people in his own party who now applaud him and cheer him on, like Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham. But the main reason why people today, why people in the present time, whether they be Republican, Democrat, or otherwise, why they hate him now is because of his response to the pandemic, because he politicized the pandemic. And I want you to hear from a comedian, a TikToker, who I think sums up everything that happened with this failed pandemic response on behalf of Trump and the GOP. And he is a paramedic, so he has, that background of healthcare worker. He's also a veteran, so he understands being a patriotic defender of your country. And he's also a comedian, so I think that his point of view is very salient in these times. This is Patrick Lawler. Take a listen.
Swoosh. I keep thinking about how much worse things could be, like politically or in America, which I know sounds ridiculous, just like look at the last 3 years, but I think it could have been a lot worse. See, I've been reading all these news articles about, like, who is in the hospital right now. Like, what is the demographic that is currently being hit the hardest? And it's Trump supporters. And it just keeps making me think, like, how did he fumble the ball this badly? Because I remember 9/11, and I remember what happens when a mediocre leader is handed a national emergency, and how people will just rally behind them, no matter what they do. I mean, 9/11 kicked off a 20-year conflict, and then 3 years later we did a second one. Not to mention the Patriot Act, and all of these different freedoms that we gave away for security, and people did it happily, because they felt like they were good patriots for supporting the president. And it just makes me go like, why didn't they do this for COVID? The GOP loves a war. They've got the war on terror. They've got the war on drugs. Hell, when they can't think of something to go to war with, they make one up, like the war on Christmas. And what's crazy is I think they've figured it out now. Because now Donald Trump is telling everybody they gotta get vaccinated. And they're booing him for it. Because he's seeing the numbers. And he's seeing that those swing states don't have the margins they used to have. And it's freaking him out. And all he had to do was come out in front of a podium, declare a war on COVID, give a bunch of money to the police so that that wouldn't be their leading cause of death, mobilize the military and give them even more money, make it anti-patriotic not to wear a mask, sell everybody a bright red mask that says, "Make America breathe again." And they could have grifted and done every terrible thing that they normally do, and they just didn't. They pretended it didn't exist because it was only hitting the blue states. And then they pretended it was a hoax. And then they pretended that the vaccine didn't work. The vaccine that Trump could have taken credit for. And if he had done that stuff, he'd be the president now. Hands down. If he had had a good COVID response, if he had had a mediocre COVID response and had just made it anti-patriotic, people would have been like, you don't change captains in the middle of the game. It would have been the same dumb excuses that people used in 2004 because Americans have short attention spans. But he didn't, and he lost, and now he's staring down the barrel of a bunch of different lawsuits because he tried to overthrow the election. And it's just like, I'm baffled by how they literally, it's like watching someone strike out at a t-ball game. And you're like, how did you, it was right there. So all I can think is, thank God for ego. Because it's the only thing that's kept this democracy experiment trudging along. And is it on its last legs? Maybe. But we've got an extra 4 years to try to pump life support into it. America!
Woo! If it wasn't if it wasn't so satirical, I would be crying about it because it's so terrible. We've had so much loss of life. We've had such a horrible response in support of our healthcare workers. And if you remember, at the beginning of all of this, people in his administration were trying to steer him in that direction of declaring a war on the pandemic. And if right at the beginning of the pandemic, you remember when he was starting to hold those press conferences daily, and he said, they tell me that I'm a wartime president now because of the pandemic, because this will be the greatest crisis of my administration, and that this will be the greatest test because the pandemic is going to wage war on our citizens. So I guess even though I'm not in a war, I'm one of the only presidents that didn't start a war, I guess I am going to be a wartime president. Remember when he said that?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I guess he surrendered to the pandemic?
No, he went AWOL.
Oh, right. He got the bone spurs.
Yep.
He got the bone spurs. Well, whatever it was, as Patrick Lawler put it so well, it was right there. How could you miss it?
Yep.
And I said this to a lot of people. I mean, that's when he lost me. He lost a lot of people. He could have, and I said this to lots of folks, he could do a mediocre response, but people are in a panic. Remember how people responded to listening to Andrew Cuomo's press conferences because he was calm and he was giving people information. It turned out he was creepy and he needed to be fired, and that his response to people in nursing homes was abhorrent and criminal. But hey, he was perceived as a calming force, as a leader, because of the way he responded, because he took a responsible, we're going to deal with this, we're going to handle it, and we're fighting this together. Trump didn't do that. He failed at the most important decision. It cost him the presidency. He could have won. It cost him the presidency. It also ruined the brand for his party. It is no longer the pro-life party. It is the pro-COVID party, the pro-pandemic and pro-death party. And it will remain that way because this is the largest mass casualty death incident in the last 100 years. It's going to be stuck in our minds for the next 100. No, some of us, we are going to have PTSD generationally passed down because of what we suffered during this pandemic. Believe me, there are repercussions to being shut-ins for 3 years in a row. Mental, physical, and otherwise. And did you notice that in his Arizona rally? Because up until now, I've been showing you again and again and again, Trump made a turn. He started talking about the vaccines. He said, you got to take credit for the we made the vaccine possible. The Republicans gave this as a gift to humanity. We saved hundreds of millions of lives because we produced this vaccine in record time. He said it could have taken 12 years, but they did it in 1 year. It was incredible. And it was incredible, but he can't even take that win. He can't. The one thing he did do that he worked on, that he's actually now proud of, he pooped on it.
That's right.
He crapped on it himself.
Right. He kept that position for about a week, and all of a sudden you better go back to forget about anything I said before because short memory.
Oh no, he's not going to let you forget. He's not talking about it because it went over like a lead balloon. Nobody wanted him to say anything. He got booed everywhere he talked about the vaccines, and he doesn't like being disliked.
Oh, that's right.
He doesn't like it when he isn't the favorite in the room. So he stopped talking about it. But make no mistake, if you were to confront him right now and say, who was responsible for this vaccine that people won't take in the Republican Party? And he'll say, me. I made the vaccine available. because he took it, because he took the booster, because it saved his life, as well as the therapeutics that saved his life, because it has saved countless lives, because he knows it's safe and effective. And so does a lot of the major leadership of his party, all of whom have taken it. And that is why he was calling politicians who refused to give their vaccination and booster status gutless. Yes, he was referring to Ron DeSantis of Florida, but he was also referring to Marjorie Taylor Greene. He was also referring to any other gutless, as he put it, quote unquote, politician who refuses to acknowledge the miracle that was the vaccine that he helped to produce. Okay? And instantly, I don't know if you noticed this, instantly, Roger Stone emerged from the hole in which he lives, and he was right there supporting President Trump. He said, Trump, President Donald Trump, sometimes he hits it right on the nose. And he's referring to the gutless comments about Ron DeSantis. He says, Ron DeSantis, Yale, Harvard fat boy, can't get out of his own way. Not smart. Not honest, and not going to be president. An unknown congressman with a bad haircut and an ill-fitting suit until Donald Trump made him governor. I know where he was when he was missing. Ask Emerald Robinson, F. Ron DeSantis. And then he puts the Axios article in which Trump alludes to gutless people, and he's actually slamming DeSantis. It was a very well-known thing.
Yeah.
Everybody knew it was DeSantis.
What's that all supposed to mean? This whole cryptic thing. What's the woman's name that you said? Ask who?
Emerald
Yeah.
Robinson.
Who's that?
He made me Google her. I didn't know who she was. And you know why? Because we don't watch enough Newsmax or OAN.
Oh, okay.
That's where she came from.
I
You see,
see.
Emerald Robinson was a quote-unquote White House correspondent for Newsmax. I say was because she no longer is. Prior to joining that network, she worked over at OAN, One American News, which all these channels became Trump's favorites during the time that he was in the White House, and especially afterwards when he fell out with Fox News. Now, when Robinson was working as Newsmax correspondent, she traveled with then President Trump to Europe, Asia, reporting live during the Helsinki and Singapore summits.
Okay.
She was tight and with the Trumps. Robinson joined OAN back in 2017, and she had joined right after she had done a documentary for the Institute for Global Economic Growth that was shown internationally, and that was in partnership with the Sinclair Group. The Sinclair Broadcast Group, as you know, is the broadcasting group for many of the conservative broadcasters at the local level, state and local level, across the country. And Robinson started out, this is very ironic given where she ended up at OAN and Newsmax, which are now being cannibalized? I don't know. I said I didn't think they were going to have a long future. And the very next day, as if I had prophesied their demise, DirecTV, which is owned by AT&T, announced they were no longer going to have Newsmax or OAN. One of those two. I believe it's Newsmax. No longer going to be carried by DirecTV, which means they're dead. They're gone. They're
huge platform.
Finished. That was the majority of their television watchers.
Okay.
So if they're not carried on DirecTV, they're done. Nobody's going to watch them.
Yeah.
They're finished. But anyway, she started out at this place called the Daily Orbit. And the Daily Orbit was a syndicated science news show.
Really?
She went from science news, right, and doing a documentary for the Global Economic Growth Institute, where they talked about economic policy in countries like Chile and Estonia and Switzerland, that was viewed by millions of people worldwide. She came from this science and daily news show that headlined stories about technology, science, etc., and went to Newsmax and OAN, and was fired, by the way. The reason why she's no longer there was because she was spreading vaccine misinformation. Specifically, by the way, she got banned from Twitter for doing the same thing.
All right.
She violated the Twitter misinformation on vaccine thing way too many times, and finally she was banned for good. So she's no longer able to be on Twitter, just like her idol, former President Trump. And she was also banned because of what she said specifically about the vaccine on Newsmax. Newsmax had to get rid of her and distance themselves from her because she said that the vaccine was the mark of the beast.
That's right.
But do not worry about her. You can ask her where Ron DeSantis was, because apparently she was with him or knows about his whereabouts.
I guess.
And now you know who she is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that means. Was he having an affair with her?
I don't know.
What's going on?
Mm-hmm. Maybe
I don't know.
Exercising him.
Oh my, Duke, I see what you did there. Listen, I don't know what she knows about Ron DeSantis, but what I do know is that she has landed on a soft bed of pillows,
That's
if
right.
you will. She's had a soft landing because, worry not, she's been hired by Frank News, Frank Speech,
Okay.
Frank, whatever Mike Lindell's new,
Failing network. Yes.
their speech network, their free speech network, hired her. Here's the headline: Mike Lindell hires axed Newsmax host who claimed COVID vaccine has satanic trackers. So she's got a new gig. She'll be fine. But look at who is with who on this whole vaccine debacle, on what they did with a very safe, effective, and life-saving vaccine. And of course, we know what they did with the masks. We know what they've done with mask mandates and other mitigation rules, social distancing, requirement of vaccine, proof of vaccine to enter businesses, all of these things that have been opposed by the GOP. But let me bring you back to Roger Stone's defense, immediate defense of Trump, because right now there is a battle. Everything that Trump did with the pandemic response was because he thought he was going to get reelected by killing as many people as possible. You heard this comedian, Patrick Lawler, talk about why he opines, it's an educated guess based on everything we saw and heard from Trump, that he went ahead with the let as many people die as possible. And that's because initially the pandemic was affecting primarily blue states. Mm-hmm. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Remember how they went after Nancy Pelosi and the first things that people said, including Fauci, about mask wearing and going out and going to businesses because people were scared. And they wanted to blame Democrats' response to the pandemic for their own deaths, even though the people that were undermining the pandemic response was Trump and his administration. But, and let's not forget, Ron DeSantis has been renamed Ron Death Santis because of the thousands and thousands of people that he has killed in Florida due to his pandemic response, horrible pandemic response. But what all of this was about was getting Trump reelected. And even though he is facing down indictments from hither and yon, he is still fighting for the top spot on the GOP ticket. And Roger Stone, ever faithful, is, backing him. And he posted a video trashing Ron DeSantis publicly. Listen.
Here's my beef with Governor Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis was an unknown congressman with a bad haircut, an ill-fitting suit, and an undistinguished record in Congress until President Donald Trump's endorsement lifted him to the Republican nomination for governor of Florida. And then, because Ron is such a boring and piss-poor candidate, President Donald Trump, with the able assistance of Susie Wiles, had to visit Florida twice to drag Ron over the finish line to become governor of Florida. Now, Governor Ron DeSantis refuses to put his own presidential ambitions on hold until President Donald Trump has decided whether he wants to run again. I consider that to be an incredible act of disloyalty and ingratitude. Governor DeSantis says that I'm a convicted felon. Well, actually, I'm a former convicted felon, thanks to the pardon by Donald Trump. But if Ron DeSantis isn't careful, he will soon be a former governor of Florida without the active support of President Donald Trump.
Oh, boy.
Well, I don't think Roger Stone understands how felonies work.
He's a past felon, not a current felon.
No, he's still a felon.
Yep.
Just because he got leniency, his sentence was commuted.
Mm-hmm.
Roger, did you fall and hit your head?
Yep.
Do you not remember the paper? And he was pissed. He was secretly pissed because they couldn't just expunge the forgery and make it disappear like it never happened. That's what he wanted, but you can't get that. Nobody can give that to you, not even the president. What the president gave him was a commutation of his sentence because he was already sentenced as a felon.
That's right.
Okay? He is a criminal. He is a felon. And so what the president did was commute the sentence so that basically it went away. Mm-hmm. It did not work the same way as a pardon. And even a pardon says you have to admit you committed a crime. The president is giving you leniency so that you don't have to spend the rest of your time in jail.
Yep.
That's all that means. He didn't clean off the muck and the mire of your felony. It's still there. You still have to wear that for the rest of your life and possibly add some new felonies to it because people are looking very closely at Roger Stone.
Exactly.
And let me remind you that Roger Stone is being scrutinized right now. I don't know why people like Ron DeSantis and Roger Stone don't learn a lesson. Roger Stone has not learned that his associations are going to cause problems for the man that he's defending, Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump tiene cola que le pisen. Right now, the walls are closing in tighter and tighter around his lawyers and around now his family. And Roger Stone is out here putting out public videos, rah-rah, sis-boom-buying Donald Trump in his upcoming run for president again in 2024. Even as implausible as that may be, that he could even run, given his political problems, given the problems that he has left over from the pandemic, the liability that he has because of January 6th. And DeSantis can't see the forest for the trees. He doesn't see the disastrous outcome for Trump's campaign by letting everyone die and denying the pandemic was a problem, and is just continuing to use the same playbook in the hopes that somehow it will get him what he wants. I don't know. These people seem really stupid to me.
Oh, yeah.
But that's just me. I want to share with you that the associations that are being investigated currently by the Department of Justice, by the 1/6 Select Committee. They're focusing on the militias, as I told you. And I want to remind folks that Roger Stone is not just associated with the Oath Keepers and Stuart Rhodes. He's associated with the Proud Boys. In fact, he became an honorary Proud Boy. Here's the tweet or the post made by Gavin McGinnis's Proud Boy organization back in the day when he had declared himself a honorary Proud Boy. And this post, I'm going to show you a close-up of it so you can see that Roger Stone declares himself a Western chauvinist. Here's the close-up, and you can see that he declared himself a Western chauvinist according to the official website of the Proud Boys, along with this picture that they posted of him. But that very same picture you see right now that was posted by the Proud Boys, and by the way, his association, he was very proud of his association to the Proud Boys, right? Mm-hmm. But somehow, Roger Stone, Proud Boy, let me show you Roger Stone as a Proud Boy here. He had them remove this photo. They removed it because of the bad publicity after the Unite the Right rally where that girl got killed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. After the Unite the Right rally where that girl got killed, they decided to distance themselves from Roger Stone, the Proud Boys, because they were one of the militias that was involved with that Unite the Right rally. Okay? And Gavin McGinnis, you should know, when he first announced his Proud Boy organization back in September of 2016, right? When he founded it, he advertised in the magazine that was edited by Richard Spencer, the founder of the Unite the Right rally. Okay. The one that the alt-right, openly fascist, openly neo-Nazi dude that did the Unite the Right rally.
Okay.
Who, by the way, has now been sued and found guilty of conspiracy and has had to pay, I don't know how many millions of dollars out in damages. Mm-hmm. That was recent. That was a recent decision. So they took that picture down. It's no longer available where Roger Stone declares himself a Proud Boy, because Gavin McGinnis was advised by his lawyers to take that down and distance himself from Roger Stone. Gavin McGinnis, the Proud Boy founder, was told to distance himself from Roger Stone.
Wow.
Because he also admitted an attempt to influence the sentencing of the thugs who were in a public brawl.
Okay, yeah, I remember that.
Okay. Now let me show you, because I know, and I want to just pause for a second to talk about this.
Okay.
A lot of people that have been watching my shows, I mean, this isn't new for me. This may be new for the viewers, but this is not new for me. I have been saying controversial things because I report from the place of a researcher as a paralegal that did research that then brought the research and information that I gathered to a court. That's just how my brain works. And I've been bringing controversial information to the public since I was an editor and a columnist back at the High Plains Reader over a decade ago. And the fact of the matter is, for every person that comes onto our shows or that comments or leaves us messages of disgust and anger because we are now not representing a point of view that conforms with your worldview, that feeds your confirmation bias about what you want to hear, that doesn't change the fact that I'm going to continue to report on the facts of the day, that I'm going to continue to bring you the information that I have researched from the court cases, from the ongoing investigations, or what have you. And coming onto my shows to complain and to tell me that, you used to like what we were doing, but now you don't like what we're doing because we're not telling you the things you want to hear about the vaccine, or about the president, or about the ex-president, or about the investigation into the coup, or about whatever it is. It doesn't faze me.
Yeah.
You aren't changing hearts and minds here.
Yep.
So, put that where you will.
Plus the way you do your shows, I work the desk, I do the background production, and so I go through a lot of the information, excuse me, that your stuff is backed by research, it's backed by screenshots, it's backed by links, it's backed by articles. A lot of the live streamers and the other news shows, they don't put any of that time into doing a show that they have that proof. And so it's kind of like when people are commenting on our live streams and they're like, where's the proof? And we put the proof up, and the proof is part of the show. We design it to put the information out there. And we're not about to go cater to your insecurity and your non-knowledge about things and try to prove you wrong, because we're putting the proof out there in the first place.
And most of the time it comes directly from the people.
Yep.
The people that are accused of the thing. They said the thing. So let me just give you an example. In the last show I did, I talked about militias, and the ones that are discussed in the Constitution. They have to be disciplined, governed, and mandated, overseen by Congress. Mm-hmm. So I said that the Proud Boys, that the Three Percenters, that the Oath Keepers, and all these other people, they were criminal gangs, that they were not militias because they don't fall under the definition, nor do they fall under the jurisdiction of Congress.
Yep. And
people became upset because it doesn't fit into their frame of mind of what they think of. And they like the Proud Boys. It doesn't matter what your feelings feel. I don't care about your fifis. And by the way, I wasn't the first person to say that the Proud Boys are a gang. It was their founder, Gavin McInnes. Mm-hmm. Here he is in the New York Times back in 2018, I believe, October of 2018. This is following that brawl.
Okay.
And it says right there, Proud Boys are a fraternal organization of so-called Western chauvinists that McInnes sometimes referred to as a gang. He referred to it, the founder of the group referred to it as a gang. Because you know what? It is a gang. Mm-hmm. It's what it is. So he named it for what it was. And let me just show you, in the same article, one of the Proud Boys that was charged as part of the brawl, that he was in trouble for trying to influence the outcome of, Gavin McInnes, the founder, who distanced himself from Roger Stone. This man, John Kinsman, one of the Proud Boys, was charged with gang assault. Take a look for yourselves. This is from that same article. So, Proud Boy member John Kinsman of Morristown, New Jersey, was arrested and charged with riot and attempted gang assault by a gang. Mm-hmm. Because they're a gang. That's how the law classified them. That's how the law classified their crimes in the past. And that's what the founder of the organization Proud Boys called them himself. Now, I want to show you that Roger Stone is a flighty, fickle man. He will, just like Donald J. Trump, bring you into the fold and tuck you under his wing until the wind starts blowing in a different direction, and then they're out of there and you're on your own. Good luck to you. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. Because they recruited Ron DeSantis. They recruited, and Roger Stone has surrounded himself with like-minded gang members and criminals. And people, ne'er-do-wells, if you will.
Oh, yeah.
One of them being Matt Gaetz. And he's already distanced himself from Matt Gaetz. He tweeted very recently, or telegrammed, or I don't know what he's allowed to do anymore, but he said, bye-bye, Matt Gaetz. Bye-bye. Because, I don't know if you know this, but the woman that we heard had testified before the grand jury last week, she was given immunity, total immunity, which is probably the death knell for Matt Gaetz, because that means that if she had complete immunity, she was completely free to spill the beans without any repercussions for herself. And that means she will not face any charges for her involvement in what? Well, the thing that she was specifically involved with, because this particular ex-girlfriend was the ex-girlfriend that Matt Gaetz got an internship at the White House for. She was also the person that was allegedly reported to have gone on an international flight with underage girls to the Bahamas.
Okay.
To the Bahamas. That's trafficking.
Yep.
So this is in addition to the Joel Greenberg stuff and the Venmo stuff, okay? That's separate.
Wow.
This is separate from the girl that he told Tucker Carlson, remember we went to dinner with you and your wife? This is another thing. This is the Bahamas trip with underage girls, allegedly. So he sees the writing on the door, and what does he do immediately? As soon as Matt Gaetz is in hot water, bye, good luck. And this is a man who recruited Matt Gaetz. Roger Stone recruited him back in 2013, 2014. Here's a post by Daniel Ulfelder that shows Jacob Engels, one of Stone's proteges, interviewing Roger Stone and Matt Gaetz at an October 6, 2017 Florida event for the Cannabis Coalition, because Matt Gaetz was going to introduce some cannabis. Well, he did introduce some kind of cannabis. And remember that this plastic surgeon guy involved in the cannabis thing. Yeah, that whole thing is still pending up in the air because he had some weird things going on with those cannabis people. Well, right there in that post, it says that Roger Stone, that in this interview, Matt Gaetz, you can go and find it yourself. Here's the Twitter handle, Daniel Ulfelder, spelled Uhlfelder, and you can go and find the interview with Matt Gaetz and Roger Stone, where Matt Gaetz himself, out of his own pie hole, says, I was drafted by Roger Stone back in 2013, 2014.
Yep, we're buds.
The same person that was his mentor, okay, that hung out with Joel Greenberg, the already accused and already made a deal with prosecutors, sex trafficker of girls, okay? They hung out with Roger Stone. They were all trying to get some kind of a pardon out of Trump in the later months of his administration. And let's not forget who else are the proteges of Roger Stone. These are all people he mentored, many of whom are involved very closely with militias or with the organizers of the January 6th insurrection. Here he is with Jack Posobiec, Jacob Engels, the guy that you just saw interviewing both Matt Gaetz and Roger Stone, Laura Loomer, who has been deplatformed from everything, Proud Boy Joe Biggs, who's also a reporter for Alex Jones at InfoWars, Ali Alexander, and Milo Yiannopoulos down there. Look at all of the people. There's Gavin McInnes, the founder of the Proud Boys. All of these folks that have these organizing, mentoring ties to Roger Stone are being closely looked at. But remember, on my last show, as I was telling you, how the investigation into the January 6th insurrection is going up the food chain, getting closer and closer to the Trumps, and they're in that inner circle of the lawyers around Trump. And remember that I also told you that a lot of them have been refusing to cooperate because they say that their work is privileged. They say that it's, lawyer privilege. But guess what? They are getting told they have to produce the information. Yet last time yesterday, the day before yesterday, I talked about Rudy Giuliani. Today I'm going to tell you about Ken Paxton and his legal problems.
Yeah.
Because Ken Paxton was ordered by a district attorney to turn over records related to January 6th. And he had refused to do that.
Yeah.
And they said, you have to do it. It's not privileged. And you got 4 days to turn all that stuff over.
Wow.
This is also right around the time, because this is all happening at the same time. Yesterday, Eric Trump sat for a deposition and invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination over 200 times, I believe.
Wow.
So he's being scrutinized. I'm sure he's unhappy because he's tweeted about it. He's tweeted about how horrible Letitia James is. So has DJ TJ. And Letitia James, who suspended her run for governor to focus on this ongoing investigation, prosecution, says that on Tuesday she announced that her office has found significant evidence of financial fraud and also misleading asset valuations by the Trumps. So in order to obtain legal benefit for years, the Trumps were being fraudulent. James added that her office has been taking legal action to force former President Trump and his kids, Ivanka, DJ TJ, Eric, that they have to comply with the investigation into Trump's organization's financial dealings. And these allegations were presented in a court filing on Tuesday, where the court was asked to enforce the subpoenas. Guess what? They're going to get enforced.
Okay.
They're going to get enforced.
Good.
So all of this has been happening as a, part of the failed pandemic response. But folks, the pandemic is not over.
Nope.
We are still in the throes of it. And although I feel like it's a day late and $1 short, we are all getting some COVID tests.
Yeah.
Some of us, not as many as we need. And there's glitches in the system, as you probably heard. But Duke, tell people where they could order their COVID test for their home.
Well, you can just go to covidtest.gov, and you click on the link, and I actually did this yesterday, because the site just opened up. It's through the post office. And you fill out a form, and its residential address gets 4 tests. That's probably the thing that, it's better than nothing. I don't have any tests, and they've had a shortage of tests. And you get 4 shipped to your home. It's going to come out in the next couple of weeks. So we'll get them at
Can you order
February.
Can you order more later down the road, or is this the only 4 you get?
Looks to me like this is the only 4 you get until they update that and decide that you can get more. I don't know if they'll do that and just automatically ship you more, or you have to opt in. The other thing that they decided is that insurance companies will cover the costs and do reimbursements, which sounds a little bit messy to me. You go buy, they'll reimburse up to $14 a test, up to, I think,
I don't
8 tests per
trust
month.
any insurance company to
no.
reimburse me
No.
for anything.
Yeah, so those things are still problematic, to even the shortage of getting tests. I'd like to have them, so if we decide to ever visit anyone or have a visitor, that we could do a test before we interact with each other. And, so they'd be nice to have that. We've actually done the Minnesota test when Cindy was ill. We wanted to test her for COVID, and Minnesota has a test that they mail it to you, and then you meet with a doctor over Zoom, and you administer the test, ship it off to them, and they send you a result within 48 hours. So that still exists, too, in Minnesota.
Well, let me just tell you that I think that people who are symptomatic have access to free home tests that have been mailed to their home. They save it for a rainy day when they start feeling sick. They'll be able to test. And I think even though there are a bunch of COVID deniers out there, that there are a bunch of callous, egotistical, selfish people that won't test, that refuse to test because if they test positive, it means they can't go to Hawaii. It means they can't go and speak at this event, or they can't go to the concert, or they can't do the thing they wanted to do. For all of those that will do that, there are people genuinely wanting to know if they're contagious so that they don't harm others. Yeah. And for those people, these tests will be a heaven send. Remember, the past administration scrapped a plan that was going to send free N95 masks to every household in America. Well, now we are finally going to be getting these N95 masks, which the CDC and health experts have said is what everyone should be wearing now in order to really protect ourselves, especially from Omicron. Those will be made available, but you can't get them mailed to your house like you will the COVID test, unfortunately.
Really?
White House officials have said that the masks will be shipped to pharmacies and community health centers all across the country, where they will be available free for pickup from, those locations that will be reported through local news outlets, I'm assuming.
I guess.
Unlike the government program for distributing the home tests, they don't have any plans to ship them directly to your home, which is unfortunate, because I think that would be the best way to do it. But I would encourage everyone to get an N95, whether you get it through the free program or you buy them, and that you use those all the time now. No more cloth masks, gaiters, bandanas. Yep. They are not sufficient. They won't protect you from these variants like Delta and Omicron. You will be spreading the disease. If you can't get your hands on an N95, double layer your surgical mask, your cloth mask. Have layers at the very least. Cloth masks, according to a public health professional at the Milken Institute School of Public Health at George Washington University, said on CNN this last month that cloth masks are little more than facial decorations and in the face of Omicron, because there's just too much contagion from this variant. So, N95 masks for all people, or double mask if you don't have. Don't use gaiters and bandanas. Those are horrible. And they do anticipate they're going to be getting high-quality masks for kids in the future.
Oh, good.
Hopefully the near future. In the meantime, you can get the smaller size N95 mask, but you can order them and pay for them online. And I would recommend very highly that you do that, because this is not going away. And we are at the place in our history in America where even in the Supreme Court, Justice Sonia Sotomayor has to appear virtually because Neil Gorsuch, another justice, refuses to wear a mask.
Yeah.
That's where we are, where the highest court in the land is not a safe place for the justices, because there are selfish people out there. And what you need to do is vax, boost, and protect yourself with an N95 mask. That's all I have for you tonight on A Mexican Crossing Lines with your host, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You've been listening to 88.1 FM KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. Good night and God bless.